Actor Raymond Cruz out of police custody after he was arrested for allegedly spraying water at a group of women.
Oh! Damn, man, look at that, look!
The man who terrorized audiences as the psychotic drug lord Tuco Salamanca just got arrested for something nobody saw coming. Raymond Cruz, the actor who made viewers jump out of their seats with his explosive violence on Breaking Bad, was handcuffed and taken into custody for allegedly spraying women with a garden hose. Yes, you heard that right. The same guy who beat people to death with his bare hands on screen got busted for a water fight gone wrong. This isn't some publicity stunt or misreported celebrity gossip. This actually happened, and the details are even more ridiculous than you'd imagine. When fans first heard the news, many thought it was fake, or some kind of elaborate joke. How does someone go from playing one of television's most feared characters to getting arrested for hosing down strangers in his driveway?
This happened today outside his home in the Silver Lake area. His agent telling us tonight that the women were harassing the Breaking Bad actor.
The internet exploded with disbelief. Memes started flying, and suddenly everyone was asking the same question. What the hell actually happened in Silver Lake that day? This story has layers that get more bizarre the deeper you dig. And by the end of this, you'll understand why this might be the most absurd celebrity arrest in recent memory. On September 8, 2025, police arrived at Cruz's Silver Lake home after receiving reports that the 60-year-old actor had assaulted someone's daughter with a garden hose. The Los Angeles Police Department arrested him on suspicion of misdemeanor battery, and he was later released on his own recognizance. No charges have been filed yet, but Cruz has a court date set for October 1st.
They say the women aren't from the area, but they called the police on Cruz. He was arrested on suspicion of misdemeanor battery. Cruz was later released, but he has a court hearing next month.
The whole situation sounds like something out of a comedy sketch, but for the Breaking Bad star, this is very real. What makes this even more bizarre is that this marks Cruz's very first arrest in his entire 60 years of life. The man has a completely clean record, supports law enforcement, and has never had so much as a parking ticket controversy. Yet here he is, making headlines for allegedly weaponizing his garden hose like some kind of suburban water warrior. The police report describes it as a dispute with the victim that escalated when Cruz allegedly sprayed water towards the victim. Officer David Queller's official statement makes it sound like a serious assault, but when you dig deeper into what actually happened, the story becomes almost comically absurd. This is a guy who spent decades playing cops and criminals on screen, who understands the legal system, who's worked alongside law enforcement consultants on multiple TV shows. The fact that his first encounter with real police involved garden hose allegations is so surreal it almost feels like a fever dream. Social media immediately started buzzing with questions. Was this targeted harassment? Was Cruz set up? Were these women specifically looking for trouble with a celebrity? The timing couldn't be worse for Cruz either, as he's been trying to distance himself from his villain roles and build a reputation as a serious professional actor. But here's where things get interesting. According to Cruz's talent agent, Rafael Burco, the actor was simply washing his car in his own driveway when a white minivan pulled up and parked extremely close to his bumper. 3 women were inside, and when Cruz politely asked them to move their vehicle so it wouldn't get wet, they flat out refused. The women allegedly told him no, and then did something that would escalate the entire situation. Think about this for a moment. You're at your own home, trying to do basic car maintenance, and complete strangers park so close to your vehicle that you can barely move around it. Most people would be frustrated, but Cruz tried to handle it civilly. He warned them their car might get wet from the spray, gave them a chance to move, and even said "come on" in what his agent describes as a polite tone. But these women had other plans, and what they did next turned a simple car washing session into a full-blown legal nightmare. The agent's version of events paints Cruz as the victim of what seems like deliberate provocation. But why would 3 random women target a 60-year-old actor washing his car? This wasn't a chance encounter. They specifically chose to park right next to his bumper despite having the entire street available. The agent emphasized that these weren't neighbors, they weren't from the area, and they had no legitimate reason to be parked there. This raises serious questions about their motives, and whether Cruz was being deliberately targeted for some kind of social media stunt or harassment campaign. The whole setup feels suspicious, like someone was trying to create a confrontation that could be filmed and potentially go viral. The moment Cruz started cleaning his car again, the women began filming him. Imagine you're trying to wash your car in peace, and strangers start recording you for no apparent reason. When Cruz turned around to ask them to stop filming, he was still holding the hose, and water splashed from his car onto their vehicle. That's when one of the women decided to call the police and claim he deliberately sprayed them. The agent emphasized that these weren't even neighbors. They were complete strangers who had no business being there in the first place. But why were they filming him in the first place? His agent's statement raises more questions than it answers. Were these women targeting him specifically because they recognized him as Tuco? Were they trying to provoke a reaction for social media content? The fact that they immediately started recording suggests this might not have been a random encounter. Cruz's agent made it clear that the water hitting their car was accidental spillover from washing his own vehicle, not a deliberate attack. Yet somehow, this mundane suburban activity turned into a criminal case that could potentially damage the reputation Cruz has spent decades building. The filming aspect is particularly suspicious. Who just starts recording someone washing their car unless they're expecting something to happen? This feels like a setup from the beginning, with the women positioning themselves to capture any reaction they could get from Cruz. The fact that they called the police immediately after getting splashed suggests they were looking for exactly this kind of outcome. It's the kind of situation that makes you wonder if Cruz was targeted specifically because of his fame, or if these women were hoping to provoke the real-life Tuco into doing something they could capture on camera. Instead, they got a 60-year-old man politely asking them to move their car and accidentally splashing them with car wash water. But apparently that was enough to turn him into a criminal in their eyes. Now, if you don't know who Raymond Cruz is, you're missing out on one of television's most terrifying performances. This 60-year-old veteran actor brought to life Tuco Salamanca, the unhinged drug kingpin who made Walter White's life a living nightmare in Breaking Bad's early seasons. Tuco wasn't just violent. He was unpredictably explosive, capable of switching from friendly conversation to brutal murder in seconds. Cruz's portrayal was so convincing that fans still get chills when they see him on screen. The character became a cultural phenomenon, spawning countless memes, reaction videos, and discussions about what makes a truly terrifying villain. People would cross the street if they saw Cruz in real life. Not because he's dangerous, but because Tuco left such a lasting impression that it's hard to separate the actor from the character. The irony here is almost too perfect. The man who played TV's most dangerous character getting arrested for something as innocent as washing his car. It's like finding out that Anthony Hopkins got a speeding ticket or that Robert De Niro was caught jaywalking. The mundane reality completely destroys the fearsome image we've built up in our minds. Cruz's Tuco was so memorable that he only appeared in a handful of Breaking Bad episodes. Yet he's still considered one of the show's most iconic characters. The performance was so intense, so genuinely unsettling, that it launched Cruz into a different level of fame. Before Breaking Bad, he was a working actor with steady roles. But after Tuco, he became a household name associated with unpredictable violence and explosive rage. The character was written to be killed off relatively early in the series. But Cruz's performance was so compelling that the writers brought him back for Better Call Saul and expanded the entire Salamanca family storyline. That's the level of impact his portrayal had on the Breaking Bad universe. It literally changed the direction of the show's mythology. What makes Cruz's performance as Tuco even more chilling is that it wasn't just acting. It was drawn from real trauma. Growing up in the gang-infested neighborhoods of East Los Angeles, Cruz witnessed genuine violence that most people only see in movies. He saw shootings, beatings, and the kind of brutality that would scar most people for life. Instead of letting it destroy him, Cruz channeled those horrific experiences into creating one of television's most authentic villains. Every time Tuco exploded with rage, Cruz was tapping into memories of real violence he'd witnessed on the streets. This method-acting approach made Tuco feel genuinely dangerous because, in a way, he was. The streets of East LA in the 70s and 80s were no joke. Gang violence was at its peak, and Cruz grew up right in the middle of it all. He's talked about how he used to hear gunshots regularly, how he'd see the aftermath of gang wars, and how that environment shaped his understanding of what real violence looks like. Most actors have to imagine what it's like to be truly dangerous, but Cruz had seen it firsthand. He knew how unpredictable and explosive real criminals could be, because he'd grown up around them. That's why Tuco felt so authentic. Cruz wasn't pretending to be dangerous, he was channeling the dangerous people from his past. The trauma of growing up in that environment could have destroyed him, but instead, he used it as fuel for his art. He's mentioned in interviews that playing Tuco was both therapeutic and terrifying, because it forced him to confront memories he'd spent years trying to forget. The method-acting approach meant that every explosive outburst, every moment of unpredictable violence, was rooted in something real that Cruz had witnessed or experienced. This gave Tuco a level of authenticity that most TV villains never achieve. Viewers could sense that there was something genuinely dangerous beneath the performance, even if they couldn't quite put their finger on what it was. The character of Tuco Salamanca became legendary for good reason. His unpredictable nature and explosive violence made him the perfect early antagonist for Breaking Bad, establishing just how dangerous Walter White's new world really was. Fans still quote his lines and recreate his most intense scenes. There have even been recent hints about potential Salamanca family spin-offs in the Breaking Bad universe, which would likely bring Cruz back to the role that defined his career. His portrayal was so memorable that it overshadowed almost everything else he's done, even though he's been acting for over 40 years. The character became such a cultural touchstone that people started recognizing Cruz on the street, sometimes with mixed reactions. Some fans would get excited to meet Tuco, while others would literally back away because the character was so convincing. Cruz has mentioned in interviews that playing Tuco was both a blessing and a curse. It gave him the biggest role of his career but also typecast him as the crazy villain. The character's impact on pop culture was massive, inspiring everything from Halloween costumes to internet memes, and establishing Cruz as one of the most memorable actors in the Breaking Bad universe. Now, with talks of potential new projects in that world, this arrest couldn't have come at a worse time for his career. The Tuco character has taken on a life of its own in popular culture, with fans creating tribute videos, reaction compilations, and analysis pieces that have racked up millions of views. The character's most intense moments have become iconic scenes that people still reference years later. Cruz's portrayal was so effective that it influenced how other shows approached writing psychotic villains. Tuco set a new standard for unpredictable, genuinely frightening antagonists on television. The success of the character also helped establish the tone for the entire Breaking Bad universe, showing audiences that this wasn't going to be a typical crime drama where violence was sanitized or predictable. Tuco's explosive nature made it clear that anything could happen at any moment, creating the kind of tension that kept viewers on the edge of their seats. This cultural impact makes the current situation even more surreal. The man who created one of TV's most feared characters is now making headlines for a garden hose incident that sounds like it belongs in a sitcom rather than a crime drama. But Cruz's career extends far beyond just playing criminals. In fact, for the past 15 years, he's been on the other side of the law, playing Detective Julio Sanchez in The Closer and its spin-off Major Crimes. He's also appeared in Training Day, showcasing his range as both a cop and criminal. At 60 years old, Cruz has built a solid reputation in Hollywood as a professional, reliable actor with zero criminal history. His agent made sure to emphasize that Cruz is actually a big supporter of law enforcement, which makes this arrest even more bizarre. The transformation from Tuco to Detective Sanchez was remarkable. Cruz completely flipped his image from psychotic drug dealer to dedicated cop, proving his range as an actor. For over a decade, he played a character who represented everything Tuco stood against. Detective Sanchez was methodical, calm, and committed to justice, the complete opposite of the explosive criminal that made Cruz famous. This career switch was intentional. Cruz wanted to show he could play more than just villains, and he succeeded. His work on The Closer earned him respect from both fans and industry professionals, establishing him as a versatile character actor rather than just a one-note bad guy. That's what makes this arrest so devastating for his reputation. Just when he'd successfully reinvented himself as the good guy, he gets handcuffed for allegedly hosing down strangers in his driveway. The irony is almost too perfect to be accidental. Here's an actor who spent years convincing audiences that he was a law-abiding detective, someone who understood the system and worked within it to bring criminals to justice. Detective Sanchez was everything that Tuco wasn't: controlled, rational, and dedicated to protecting innocent people. Cruz's portrayal of the character was so convincing that fans began to forget about his villainous past and see him as one of the good guys. The role rehabilitated his image in the public eye, transforming him from the scary drug dealer into the reliable cop that viewers could root for. This career evolution was carefully planned and executed over more than a decade of consistent work on two highly successful shows. Now, one garden hose incident threatens to undo all of that careful image rehabilitation and remind everyone that maybe Cruz isn't as different from his criminal characters as we thought. The strangest part of this entire situation is how it completely flips everything we thought we knew about Raymond Cruz. Here's a man who spent years convincing audiences he was one of the most dangerous people on television, yet his first real-life brush with the law involves a garden hose and what appears to be a massive misunderstanding. The same hands that supposedly beat people to death as Tuco were just trying to wash a car when three random women decided to make his day a living hell. It's almost like the universe decided to play the ultimate prank on both Cruz and his fans, turning the most intimidating character in Breaking Bad history into the star of what sounds like a neighborhood comedy sketch gone wrong. The contrast couldn't be more dramatic if it was scripted. Tuco would have handled this situation by reaching for a gun or a baseball bat. But real-life Raymond Cruz just stood there with his garden hose, probably wondering how washing his car turned into a criminal case. The man who made millions of viewers afraid to look away from their TV screens is now facing battery charges for allegedly splashing water on people who were harassing him at his own home. Social media has been having a field day with the news, with fans posting memes comparing Tuco's explosive violence to this bizarre garden hose incident. Some are defending Cruz, saying the women were clearly trying to provoke him, while others can't stop laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Either way, this arrest has reminded everyone that actors are just regular people dealing with regular problems, even if those problems involve getting arrested for water-related disputes in their own driveways. What happens next could determine whether this becomes a forgettable footnote in Cruz's career, or the moment when Tuco's legacy got permanently associated with garden hose drama. The legal implications are serious. Even though it's just a misdemeanor battery charge, any criminal conviction could affect his ability to work in Hollywood, especially on projects that require background checks or insurance bonding. More importantly, the public perception damage could be irreversible. Hollywood is notoriously unforgiving when it comes to actors who make headlines for the wrong reasons. And even though this seems like a ridiculous misunderstanding, it could still impact his career prospects. The man who terrified audiences as Tuco and earned their respect as Detective Sanchez is now known as the guy who got arrested for spraying people with a garden hose. That's not exactly the legacy most actors dream of leaving behind. The whole situation feels like a cruel joke played by fate. After decades of playing dangerous characters on screen, Cruz's first real-life legal trouble involves something as harmless as washing his car and accidentally splashing some water on people who were allegedly harassing him. It's the kind of ironic twist that would be rejected as too ridiculous if someone tried to put it in a screenplay. Yet here we are, living in a world where Tuco Salamanca got arrested for hose-related battery charges.